And welcome to the Go Earn It podcast. I'm Shane Sparks. This is episode 19, and we are joined by Matt McDonough, four-time Big Ten finalist, two-time Big Ten champion, three-time national finalist, two-time national champion for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Matt, looking forward to this. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, me too. Thank you.
Matt, you will always be special to me because you are my first ever Big Ten Network interview. Want to go back to Midlands. I believe that was 2011 Midlands, the 2011-2012 season. Do you remember that interview and how that all came about? Do you remember that?
I specifically remember thinking, I believe it was after, was it after the semis, the finals, or the court? It was after a round where, as usual, I needed to get my workout in, man. You don't waste a sweat when you're a kind of oversized 125 pounder. And you grab me and you're like, hey, this is my first. Can you help me out here? I'm like, I got you. We're good. Absolutely. I'm in.
You were great. I appreciate that because I've always said you got to be humble and you got to just be vulnerable. I said, this is my first time and I need some help.
And this is what I love about you is you were probably the first interview that I really remember, like very, vividly. And still, and that's why I think people love Shane Sparks, right? You're a personality. You're not just some guy that asks some wrestling questions. You're excited, you're interesting, and you have energy. And even that first interview, it was like, man, this guy. And everybody, especially early on when people didn't know of you that much, they're like, dude, that guy's insane. Is he like freaking doing drugs or something? He's crazy. I'm like, no, man, he just loves wrestling. I love it.
I've always said that when people talk to me, I'm like, you get excited too. Like, why am I excited? Like, of course I'm excited. You'd be excited too if you got to do this. Anybody would be if you love wrestling.
I don't remember when you talked about it, but I remember listening to sometime you talked about your path to doing this and how this is why you're so excited. Cause you're like, I could have never dreamed at a certain time. What were you like selling cars or you were doing something? Yep. And that was your full-time job. And then at some point in your life, I remember, and I can't remember where it was, an interview or something, but you talked about how you basically had the chance to do this full-time, and it was like you were living in a dream, and that's kind of what helps spur you to be excited is you just still, like, for forever, like, I cannot believe this is what I do for my daily work. And that I love it. I think that's amazing. That's how more people should be, right? Blessed.
Well, I want to talk about your path. Marion, Iowa, Linn-Mar High School, four-time place winner, three-time state champ. So you and I were talking before we started recording. Your freshman year is the year that you lost. What do you remember, Matt, from your high school career? You were a stud.
Man, I think the most important thing I remember was from my freshman year into my sophomore year of high school. My dad, he was an ex-Hawkeye wrestling background. So I grew up with wrestling stories, and he was a lawyer, and, he majored in psychology. So he's always working on my, my mental thought process as much as my training. If anything, more than my physical training. I wasn't that kid who grew up having to do 100 pull-ups and 200 push-ups every night. And that's why I'm good. I was the kid who was the baby of the family. I enjoyed wrestling, and my dad he watered it like a flower. He just kept watering it, kept working on me, and he guided me, but he let me figure it out. And he always talked about, getting the wrestling bug, and you can't get enough. And sure enough, my freshman year, I had just hit puberty. I was still 100 pounds. I was nervous, but I was really excited. I wanted to make the team. And then I wanted to have a winning record, and then I wanted to make it to state and place at state, and just kind of piece by piece things, fell in line. You place at state, and then I was like, man, I put a lot of effort in this year. Like I really focused, and I was really mentally determined. What if I do this all the time? And that summer I was full in. I was going to all the club practices I could. I was training as much as I could. There really wasn't a time where I was like, I need to relax. Like I wanted to go. And I carried that right into my sophomore year of high school. And I had a determination that like I can be one of the best in the state, if not the best. And I remember wrestling my college teammate. I wrestled Mark Ballwig early in the season. He was the number 1 ranked guy, returning state champ, 112 pounds. He beat me up pretty good early in the season. He had an injury mid-season with his elbow. I still don't know exactly what it was. So he didn't wrestle for a big chunk of the season. Then he comes and wrestles at districts. I wasn't in his district. But then at state, we got paired up in the quarterfinals. And that was back when there's no seeding. And, it was like, all right, you got what you want. This is it. It's not like, it's kind of like that it's kind of like that David Taylor with Yazdani. He got him first round. He's like, perfect. I wanted to wrestle him. Wrestle him right away. Let's get it out of the way right now. It's kind of that where you're like, man, I wish, that in the first instance when you see it, you're like, oh, well, I thought we could like wrestle in the finals in the big match. And then it's like, you know what? Who cares? That is the finals. Go in the match, nervous. I'm down, I think it was 2-0, third period. I hit him in this nice carry. I put him on his back, and I end up winning the match 5-2. I think I might have the score slightly off, but I want to say 5-2 or 5-3. And from that point on, it was just like I blew through the rest of the tournament. And from that point on, it was like it was kind of validation. Like, man, I can be that good. Like this training, this whole mindset thing of like you're determined, you do everything in your power, and you don't let anybody get in your way. And you believe in yourself. It can all that stuff can work. And then it was just from then on, that was the norm. Was like, all right, I'm in this tournament. Well, I'm not doing this unless I'm trying to win. And it's just. It grew from there over and over and over. I wasn't the kid coming out of middle school who was I was the kid in today's world where maybe he'd be on the state side websites like IA Wrestle, or I think PA Power has their own. But I wouldn't have been the kid who like Flow Wrestling talked about as a prodigy coming into high school. I was just some kid who could be okay.
The mind fascinates me, and your mind. So when I look back when I look at college wrestlers, the last 10 to 15 years from a pure mindset standpoint, you would come to mind. When you look back at your time in high school and some of those discussions with your dad, what is it? Can you peel the onion back a little bit, Matt? 1 or 2 things that you did to strengthen that muscle of the mind?
Well, first of all, I think this is what somewhat holds me back, but also helped me develop a good foundation. I don't see myself as anything more than anybody else. I don't see myself as extra special. Like I've put in all this work. I'm better than other people. I really like to this day, I look back on my career and it's been really fun, but I don't carry around this aura of, yeah, I'm a national champ. I'm at a work training right now, and I truly don't think anyone in the training class knows about my wrestling background, other than that I wrestled in college. The only way I can tell you with 100% surety, the only way they know how good I was at wrestling was if they went and looked it up. Otherwise, they would know. Because with people who aren't all about me, I don't need to go carry that. And again, I'll go back, for better, for worse. I think that's what's helped me, is that it's kept me humble. It's kept me a good foundation. And so winning and losing, as much as I hate to lose, it's always about moving forward. And that's what my dad taught me is, it's always about personal development and really like challenging yourself, seeing how good you can get. The other side is, I don't want to call it being fearless, but tenacious and persistent come to mind, and persistent mostly. And that it's just like, I'm just over and over and over. I'm going to do stuff until people get tired of seeing me. And I'm going to do something until people get tired of defending me in wrestling. Or I'm going to do something until others just say, I'm bored. I've had enough. Like, I'm just going to do more. That persistence. And then the tenacity is basically, it's synonymous with fearless. It's not fearless where it's a lack of fear, but it's doing something that you know is going to hurt and it's going to probably suck. And there's a chance that you could really just get your butt whipped, and not being scared, but also on the same aspect as that is still going into it with that tenacity where you're like, I'm gonna go. Like a good example, sophomore year of high school, and you could talk to them about this. I'm at this local training session for high schoolers in the springtime, a freestyle group in the Cedar Rapids area. And Mark Ironside helped coach practices at it, and he took a liking to me. I knew him since I was a young kid. We're both local. I always went to his camps as a kid. And then I had won state that year. And then that summer I was training for Fargo, and I really wanted to wrestle him because I was starting to get a little, some looks from colleges. And he's an Iowa guy. And I had a relationship with him. I said, let's wrestle after practice. So we go wrestle live, and this man beat me. He did not take it easy, oh yeah, we'll roll around, we'll have fun. No. It was and it was probably my fault. From the first whistle, I probably came at him like, this is a real wrestling match. Like, I'm coming at you. And he started beating me, and he just throttled me. And I'm willing to bet safely we wrestled for 30 minutes without stopping. If it was less than that, it felt like an hour. I'm trying to be conservative, but we probably wrestled for 30 minutes without stopping. I had snot. I was crying. I was soaking wet. This was after a practice, mind you. I hated my life. But about a third of the way in, I thought to myself, this is Mark Ironside. This is like a legend. I can't be the one that says I need a break. Like, I have to show him that I have the same level of toughness than him. If I can't beat him, then I at least have to be as tough as him. And I did not stop until he took a break. And I was literally snotting, crying, whipped. And it was like I was getting in my own head in a good way, thinking, this guy, at this point, he's got to be bored. He just wants to see how long I'll wrestle until I'm just going to wrestle until I get a takedown. I am not going to stop until I get a takedown. Unless he wants a break, I'm not stopping. And sure enough, that's how it went. We went until basically he started wrestling less live, and I think maybe I took him down, or he said, all right, that's good. And that was that. That was a vivid experience, and you talk to him about it, he'll laugh about it. But, he told me later on, like, yeah, I still remember that. That was where I knew you were for real, because of the way you carried yourself. And, I've always carried that with me. It's just like, you got to have that no quit mentality. That's that persistence.
You talk about the match with Ballwig as a sophomore, and maybe this is the answer to the next question. Most memorable moment for you in the Iowa High School State Tournament en route to one of those 3 state titles?
Oh man, I had some pretty good ones. It was probably, honestly, all right. So there's 3 that I vividly remember that were awesome, and I'll try to put them in order. The first one, the third bronze medal, would be my senior year in the semifinals. It was me and Dylan Carew all year. And Dylan Carew's tough. He was a state champ returning. I had wrestled him the year before in a very close match. We had 2 close matches. I won both. My senior year, we had 2 close matches, and then we met up in the semis. And he had this move that was, we'll call it borderline. It was like a Merkle, basically. It was a Merkle, but you can imagine it was a real tight Merkle. And so that was like the big thing, is he was hitting it on everybody. And he had not got it on me, but he was hitting it on everybody. And I knew it was like going to be a marquee matchup of the tournament. He was a junior. I was a senior. We were 1 and 2 in the state, both returning state champs, both nationally. I believe I won Fargo my sophomore year. I believe the year before his junior year there, the year prior to that, he had won Fargo for Greco. So we were both nationally renowned wrestlers. And I remember wrestling him, and it was a really tight match. And I want to say it was the second period. I caught him in a cradle for 5 points, like one of those typical drape, grab a cradle. And I just still remember holding him in the cradle for the whole period thinking, I got it. Like I knew, like, we had 2 close matches before. I needed to win this, for me, to cap it off right, and I won it. So that's third. Second, the following match, my senior year, I was on I had 29 pins my senior year, and with every ounce of my being, I wanted to get to the 30 mark, because that's Jay Borschel, my teammate. That was his mark. It's 30 pins in a year, and I was like, I want to be on the leaderboard with him. So I had 29, and my Julian Fiker was his name. Rest his soul. I think he passed, but I remember pinning him in the first or early second period, and I run off the mat, and I'm telling my coach, tell Jay I got him. And then they get him on the phone, and I tell him, and he's like kind of laughing about it because I'm so excited. He doesn't care. So that's number 2. Number 1 for sure was my junior year. It was me, Dylan Crew, and Tyler Clark. And we were all state champs the year before that. Tyler Clark in Illinois, me and Dylan Crew in Iowa, and we all ended up in the same bracket. I had beat Dylan Carew in the district finals, and back then 1 versus 2 paired. He wrestled Tyler Clark in the first round of the tournament. So if I would have lost in the district finals, I would have wrestled him first round. Well, anyways, me and Tyler Clark both win, and it's this out-of-state kid. And I love Tyler Clark. We're buddies now. We actually both work for the same company. And I remember thinking, like, this out-of-state kid, no, he can't come to Iowa and take my state title. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. I got to put this kid down. And I beat him in a really tight match, a really close match. And I was so pumped up because it was like validation. Winning your second is always more validating than your first. Your first is validating because you put in the work. But when you win your second, it's basically saying, I know the formula. Like I've had it down. I know the formula, the secret to success. I can reproduce it. I can do it one year and then do it again. Like that's harder than people think. People look at a guy like Keegan O'Toole or Aaron Brooks, or go back in past years to my coach, just Tom and Terry Brands or Cale Sanderson. Like everyone knows that's crazy, but even any guys who won 2, that's like they see these people right now. They see Keegan O'Toole as a perfect example, and I know he had David Carr, but they see David Carr, and that's a perfect example. Who unseated him? Who unseated David Carr? Keegan O'Toole. Who unseated Keegan O'Toole? David Carr. Like, it is hard to win multiple times. And people look at those kids like they're just that good. It's like, no, they're good, but they're just that gritty. Like, it's not just for them. It's not good enough to just win. Like, I want people to remember me.
Talk about the impact Doug Stryker had on you. He was your head high school coach and All-American for the Hawkeyes, I think, in 1990.
Yeah, he just retired this year.
On you?
Just retired this year.
Yes.
I want to say 25 plus. I don't know. I should know the exact number, but we're in 2024. He was definitely coaching at Linn-Mar in the late 90s. 25 plus years coaching at the high school level. A former Hawkeye, All-American, a guy from small town Iowa, Starmont, Strawberry Point area. He had an absolutely amazing impact, and I still have a great relationship with. I owe him a lot. Between him and my dad and a guy by the name of Pablo Ubasa, I mean, those 3 were really the big reason. And I can't leave out the other coaches. I got Coach Hag, Coach Gatto that helped me. These are 2 coaches that I had in high school. But to specifically speak on Doug Stryker, he taught me that I want to say that humility, and that staying grounded, just doing things the right way. He really wasn't big on shortcuts to win, and more so even as a coach for a school where he could have pulled in some kids from other areas, and he didn't. Like, everything was always for him was whatever kids show up in that room on day one are the kids I'm going to run with. I'm not going to go, ask this kid from the neighboring school if, hey, we can build a team. I'm not saying that recruiting always exists in high school, but recruiting exists at every level, even the youth wrestling club level. Trust me, recruiting exists all over at every level. And that's what I learned from Stryker was just, it wasn't, he wasn't doing it for his own ego. Like, he didn't force us all. And again, these coaches are still, won't name any names, but these kind of coaches are great coaches. But like, there was not this mandated freestyle. You need to go to Fargo. You need to go to Northern Plains. Like, there wasn't anything for us. He facilitated anything any of us wanted. And that's probably why, he didn't have these state championship level teams. But if you look at the kids he's produced under his watch, they're in line with some of the most highly touted coaches in this state. You got a two-time NCAA Division I champ, a one-time NCAA Division I champ, and a four-time Iowa high school state champ, and then a slew of other kids who went D1. You have multiple Division III All-Americans, and now you have two brothers in Tate and Kane Nactamorn who are probably going to go do big things. And that man knows how to build good people. And I think every one of his athletes would agree to that. Just the standards that he held for himself and for the team were so high that there was no corner cutting. I'll tell you a story quick. I keep going.
Man, here's the deal with you. I want to say this right now. I'm going to put you on the spot. This needs to be a 2 or 3 part series because we haven't even scratched the surface. If you're down for that, let's do it.
I need to get into broadcasting. I've talked to Ironside. I said, Ironside, if there's ever a time like in that Iowa high school state tournament or being on the road with the Hawkeyes where like you need a break and you like throw me in, I'm in. Absolutely. I'll talk wrestling.
So give us the stories. I mean, the stories are what makes this podcast interesting.
So my senior year of high school, I was, again, number one in the state. It was me and Dylan Kerr, nobody else. I torched every other kid in the state. I had 30 pins. I had not 30 pins at the time, but we have this tournament, Iowa, every year that we went to. These small town duels called the Esterville Duels, which is Esterville, right next to Okoboji. Well, anyways, we went there after Christmas. It's our one big trip as a team. It's like a 5-6 hour drive. We stay overnight, we do some duels, we come home, and we're high school kids. So what are the rules? Well, your mommies and daddies are here. Like, you can't go drive off in their cars. You're under the team's watch. You're with the team. Well, I wasn't cutting any weight, and I thought I was pretty freaking cool. So me and a senior borrowed my dad's car and drove into Okoboji and got ourselves a nice steak dinner.
You were how old here, Matt?
This is my senior year in high school. So I was a high schooler, but,
okay.
And people who aren't from that era or before maybe don't understand, because kids nowadays can pretty much do anything they want. The rules now are definitely more lax than they used to be about what youth are allowed to do. I mean, I didn't have a phone when I was a middle schooler. I barely had one in high school. Now I got an 8-year-old at home asking when she's going to have a cell phone. So anyways, the rules were you're going on the team bus. We're at the hotel. We eat as a team. You do not leave these premises. I am your liaison. I'm responsible for you. You cannot. These are, non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
I went and had a steak dinner. Coaches figured out I left. Again, they're responsible for me. So if something bad happens, like, they're liable, and that's why. I get back, Coach Stryker's not happy. I had known, like, as we were finishing our steak dinner, I got a text, from my dad or something, like, you need to get back here right now. And I get back, I'm sitting, in Stryker's room, and he had talked to the other kid I was with separate than me. And he got me in the room and he's like, listen, I know you're trying to go after the pin record. I know that, you're our best guy and you're going to be pissed, but I'm like, I can't make exceptions for you. You're going to miss the first two duels of the tournament. And again, my thought process that year was I'm going to get 30 pins. This was in the second half of the year. Like I was like doing the math, like I'm going to pin this kid. Like I'm going to get more than 30. So that, again, that state championship story, I'll have a lot more context now, but I had to miss my first two. Guess the first two kids, like very rudimentary green wrestlers that would not have lasted through the first period. I was seething. I mean, I was like, I wanted to rip someone's head off. The kid I had for the first match I had in the tournament was a kid from Okoboji, or from Spirit Lake Park. I want to say his name is Dylan Miner. He was a state champ. Me and him had wrestled every year. We wrestled all 4 years. I beat him my freshman year. I got upset by my sophomore year. I beat him pretty bad my junior year, but I didn't pin him. So this first match, I was seething, and I'm like, this man is not walking out of this mat at 6 minutes time. It's not happening. And I cleaned him up and down the mat. I don't know when it was, but he was pinned. And this was the number one kid in the state in 2A. So I'm number one in 3A. He's number one in 2A, and I freaking pinned him. And now fast forward to the end of the season. I'm going into my finals match, and I'm at 29 pins. I get the pin. I'm ecstatic. But then I walk back in the tunnel, and, Striker makes the joke, something like, hey, yeah, see, you lucky you got those 30. You could have won it. That's why you do things the right way. And, sure enough, it sticks with me. And it's just like those things that I'm the premier kid on the team that senior year. Like I was the returning 2-time state champ. I don't even think there was another returning medalist that year in the state even like maybe not even a returning maybe one returning qualifier from my junior year to my senior, but I was pretty much the only kid. Everyone else was young, green, And so it would have been really easy for Striker to just slap me on the wrist and say, don't ever do that again. But he had to set an example because I was a leader and I broke rules, set it as an example to the team that, it doesn't matter. Like you don't get special treatment because you're the best wrestler or you're the senior. Like, no. 2 duels, it cost me my pin record. I had to share it. But those things, like I look back now and they mean whole lot more. Like they're the things that other people from the outside wouldn't think about. Like those are the things that shape you mentally, like we talked about, where you start to have people at the right time give you the right nuggets of thought process and mental training. And as long as you're taking those away and now carrying them forward, like after that, I didn't really try to be above any rules. I wanted to be in line. I wanted to do things right. And if I didn't, it taught me that you can't cheat the system and truly feel like you deserve to be the best. You deserve to win. You're always going to have that cloud over you, for better or for worse. So just do everything right. And then no matter whether you win or lose, you know what? I put everything I had into it. I can't do more than that. But you cut the corner, and I had these experiences in my life too. We talked about my senior year in high school or college. There were times where I did things unbecoming of what my normal self would have done, beyond injury, beyond anything else, just fatigue of being a senior at a low weight. Like I cut corners and it cost me. And so, bringing it back to the center is I've been lucky to have very good people throughout my career, from a time I was a kid and my dad to, Coach Brands, and beyond now into my professional life, who have helped guide me. I think everyone needs that. You can't do it alone. It's just not possible.
Go Earn It podcast here with Matt McDonough, 3-time state champion, Lynn Marr, 30 pins his senior year. Your dad was a Hawkeye.
Yes, he was.
What do you remember from your first time going to Carver Hawkeye? You remember it? First time ever?
Probably not, because I was a kid. But I can give you a parallel. I remember going to my first national tournament. My goal still, for the record, to this day, is to be the guy. And I go every year, the guy in the national tournament before that Saturday morning. All right, stand up if you've been to 5, if you've been to 10, if you've been to 15, 20. I am at, I believe it is 21 now, 21 or 22 straight. I'd have to look up the year. But I have gone every year since I was younger than high school with my dad. Or, at the start. But I remember going to my first national tournament. Of course, a huge Hawk fan. And I remember watching Mark make the national finals as a true freshman. And I was absolutely enamored. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I want to be just like these guys at this tournament. This is like the greatest show on earth. At my young age, I hadn't been to crazy pro sports events and concerts and that. So I'm at the national wrestling tournament, seeing it. Like, you're there in Kansas City. You'd see how packed it is each day. It's just like, wow, just for this sport, that's like, we're really not on the top tier of popularity, not bottom, but like not at that level. It is the premier. There's no bigger wrestling tournament in the planet. Olympics, Worlds, from a prestige of winning, yeah, totally different story. But from an entertainment event aspect, the NCAA wrestling tournament, there's no such thing bigger than that.
So your first one, you remember where it was at?
You'd have to look up. You'd have to look it up, but it might have been St. Louis. It might have been Oklahoma.
You said it was Mark Perry's true freshman year.
Yeah, Mark Perry's true freshman year. Someone can look that up. I remember it because, again, he was a true
Kyle
freshman.
Klingman was here, he'd know it exactly like that. But
I know. And you know what? There was others that were impressive in that tournament.
What else do you remember? You remember anybody else off the top of your head?
I remember watching, I believe, Cliff Moore win it.
Okay.
Which might have been right around that same time, like when Perry was a true freshman. But seeing him win it was pretty cool. Oh, man. I remember trying to think after that. I remember watching Charlie Falk, who was my predecessor at 125.
Apple Valley, Minnesota. Charlie.
That was pretty freaking fun. I remember this is crazy. I remember my freshman year at college. So I'm a redshirt.
Yep.
Down in St. Louis.
And this is what, Matt, 2009?
2009. You got it. Somehow, some way, I ended up crossing paths with Andrew Long, who, mind you, was an Iowa high school wrestler I grew up around, and we were always around the same weight. So we weren't like enemies. I would say more like adversaries a little bit, like friends, but we're always kind of competing. And for whatever reason, I can't tell you the circumstances, but we were hanging out, probably being young, dumb kids, found each other out, partying or something, thinking, well, we're just here to watch the national championships. Who knows? We certainly didn't cross paths working out as buddies, but I'm like hanging out with Andrew Long. And at the time, it didn't mean anything, but hindsight, we fast forward a year to the exact same tournament and we're wrestling on Saturday night. Like, how wild is that?
That is a crazy story.
Being a guy who's been around Iowa wrestling a lot, I know that people put this big, like, oh yeah, Iowa's supposed to be the center of the wrestling universe. It is, not because our population. You look at how many people we put in the national tournament or qualify. It's not that high, but you look at per capita, we're right there. You know, we jump up. We're like top 3 in the country per capita for success rate and other things of who's going to college programs, who's qualifying for the NCAA tournament. Like, it's a small community. There's not as many wrestlers here as people think. It's just that everybody knows everybody. It's crazy.
What's it like going back to high school just for a split second? Because I have never been to the Iowa High School State Tournament. You've been to Wisconsin. I've seen you there before when you were coaching the Badgers. I think Wisconsin does a great job, but I also, and I love Wisconsin, they do a great job, but I also know that my perception anyways is that the Iowa High School State Tournament like stand alone.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it feels very similar to the national championships in how, I mean, the national championships was in Wells Fargo, and that state championship tournament, like, you know, it's, I want to say it depends on the year, but certainly back in the day when it was at Vets, when it was a smaller stadium, it was, the entire place was packed every time, you know, and that I think that reputation goes back way beyond like when I was a kid of the end of the Gable eras, you know, in the early 90s, the late 90s, where the state of wrestling, Iowa wrestling, like if anyone was cool, they wrestled, right? I guarantee you Pennsylvania wrestling right now is having more and more kids wrestle than even they already do. And they already have a ton. Mm-hmm. But when you're a fan of a college team and they're absolutely dominating all the time, it only builds it up. So that Iowa State tournament, I mean, you got to give credit to everybody that's built that up over the years of just like this thing. It's almost to a fault. Like some kids I think cherish more being an Iowa high school state champ than they do thinking about being a national champ someday. It's like that. Like, yeah, okay. I won it, you know? Yeah. Like, you don't go into Wisconsin and you just like, oh my God, yeah, that guy, he was a state champ back in the day in wrestling. Like everybody in Iowa, they're like, yeah, he was a state champ once. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of state champs. But in Iowa, it's a thing, man.
Was it always Iowa for you? Did you go on recruiting trips? I mean, I mentioned before your dad wrestled there. Did you go on recruiting trips? What was that like?
We're not even going to get to the level of my wrestling career at Iowa because you keep asking me these questions. And
I told you, Matt, this is a 2 or a 3-parter.
Everything has nuggets. So here's the deal. This is pretty neat. I was, you know, after my junior year, I was now a multi-time Fargo place winner, multi-time state champ. And
who'd you beat to win Fargo?
My sophomore year, I beat Nate Moore, who was another highly touted recruit. And he had beat the brakes off me every time we wrestled for the entire year before. And anytime we worked out together in the kids club, I mean, it was like not even close. Like he was a prodigy and I was like this kid with 2 left feet. And it had just slowly gotten a little closer each time we wrestled. And for whatever reason, at Fargo in the national finals, I wrestled him in Greco. He beat my butt. And then 2 days later, I was wrestling him in freestyle and I upset him in like one of the biggest upsets ever of what people would have expected. And, you know, yeah, that was just, that's another one. Another crazy story, but that helped solidify me as a national, national level recruit. And so my junior year, I'm getting recruited and I kind of, you know, I was interested in a lot of schools, but I didn't want to do that whole, like, I just want to go on all the visits. So I narrowed it down to 3 and didn't even go on any other visits. I could have gone on 5. I went to Wisconsin, who was coached by Barry Davis at the time, at UW. And looking back, Iowa got, I want to say, first my freshman year and Wisconsin 4th or placed. I think it was that year maybe that they actually got that trophy. But he was an ex-Hawk who my dad knew. He was a little bit younger than my dad, but not too much.
And they don't make him better than Barry.
Yeah. And so my dad knew him, respected him, and probably had a prior relationship because they were both Hawkeye alumni. And then I got recruited by, at the time, Tim Szewski, who, if you don't know, was my dad's college teammate.
Really?
Yes, on the 1976 team, him and Tim Szewski were teammates. So I got recruited by my dad's teammate to Northwestern, which was, another Big Ten school, and still is considered an extremely prestigious academic school. And so that was a big factor for me. And then, of course, Iowa. And Iowa really wanted me. Tom Brands really wanted me. And I got big scholarships to Wisconsin and Northwestern, a whole lot more than Iowa. And I was heavily considering them, and it came down to the wire before, the signing day or whatever. And I wasn't like stringing them out. I thought I had three great options, and I really wanted to go to Iowa, but there was some other really good kids at my weight who had already been recruited there. One of them being Nate Moore, several other kids. And so it was like that. You're trying to, and this was another turning point in my career, is you're trying to decide, where's going to give me the best chance to make the lineup, where will give me the most money, like where is it going to be the most comfortable, basically. Comfortable meaning, all right, I got my school paid for, I don't have to fight hard to get in the lineup, I'm going to get to wrestle and be on a team for 4 years, I'm not going to have to fight my way through. And sure enough, I think hindsight, subconsciously, that do the right thing kicked in, and the right thing for me was to go to Iowa. I got a little more money in scholarship because my mom's like a negotiator, and she negotiated without my knowing. I didn't tell her, hey, I need this much. She just told Tom Brands, nah, he needs a little bit more. He's more valuable than that. He's like, okay. And then his coaching staff was like, we don't have that money. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to figure out where to get it from. I'll figure out how I'm going to get that scholarship money. And for the record, I never had any extra money. I got a 50% scholarship to Iowa, straight line across the whole board. And it was all through the school. And I took out my loans for the other half, just like a lot of people do. My parents didn't pay. They said, nope, you're going to have to pay for the other half of schooling. We'll help you. Help you to live and survive, but you got to cover the other half of the schooling. And so, I had relationships at Iowa. I trusted that Tom and Terry Brands were going to help me be a national champ. And I believe this was before they won their first title. So I didn't know that like Iowa was going to go on a 2-year winning streak in the national tournament. I committed to Iowa before they were national champs. So it wasn't like the easy choice either. It was like any other school, up and coming, but not national champion status. And I went to bed the night before I committed. I had great conversations with everyone. I had called Barry Davis and told him I'm not going there. I had thought long and hard. I had lots of conversations with Coach Szewski and their staff. And I thought, I'm going to go to Northwestern. I'm going to go to Northwestern. They're giving me the most scholarship. I care about academics. I know I'm going to make the team. They basically told me, like, there's a spot for you on the team at 133 pounds. And to go.
All right, Matt, we dropped you just for a second there. You were telling us night before you were thinking about going to Northwestern. So start over.
Yes. So I was thinking about going to Northwestern, and I had great conversations with Tim Szewski. I had the bigger scholarship. I had a spot in the lineup, 133 pounds. And rewind again, I remember my last the same night, and I remember these conversations. I remember the last recruiting visit to my house I had from Tom Brands, and I'm staring at him, just like we're staring across the table. And I'm like, well, Coach, you got so-and-so at this weight, so-and-so at this weight. And also these guys, I mean, you got how many guys that are going to wrestle 133 and 141? Like, where do you see me fitting in your lineup? And he said, I don't care what weight you go. I want the best guy in the lineup. And I remember that. He's like, it doesn't matter what weight. Basically, it was like, I don't care. I want a guy who's going to win a national title. Like, I want a winner, basically. I'm not recruiting you to wrestle 133 pounds for me. You just make that lineup for me. And it was like, man, that kind of spoke to you different than being basically told, like, oh, yeah, 133, we're recruiting you. This is going to be your weight class this year. Like, you're just going to get it. It's going to, here you go. You don't have to fight. You don't have to fight for your seat at the table. And so I told my dad, my mom, I'm going to go to Northwestern. You know, I got a spot in the lineup. I got all of my school paid for. I'm not going to get that at Iowa. And I'm like, well, are you going to call him? I'm going to call him tomorrow morning. All right. I'm just going to go to sleep. And when in the morning, I'll give him a call. And I was basically saying I need to sleep on it. You know, like reneging. I'd already said I wanted to go to Northwestern, but let me tell him tomorrow. I'm not ready yet. Woke up, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, I gotta go to Iowa. I can't do it. I have to. It's been my dream. You know, what's stopping me? Some money, the off chance, you know, that I might not make the lineup ever. Like, no, this is what my goal. Like, it was a dream at once, but it's been a goal, and I have it. Why would I not take it? Why would I not take this opportunity? Because it's not going to be easy. Like, no, you still have the dream. You're either quitting on the dream to accept something, you know, good, or you're going to keep the dream alive.
It's a great story. So Matt McDonough almost went to Northwestern. What I love about these podcasts is every single one of them, regardless of who it is, when the conversation's over, I go, I never knew that before. So you almost went to Northwestern. Of course, that story, Brandon Prieston is there at Northwestern. You guys had some phenomenal battles once you dropped down to 125. So
isn't that great? That's funny how that works out, is I almost was the guy for Northwestern at 133 pounds. And I end up saying, you know what? I'm not that big. I'm going to go to 125, and I am going to be big. I never really cut weight in high school. So for me, it was like, you know what? I guess I'm going to be that guy. All these other kids have cut weight for life. I'll start cutting weight now, and I'll be the big guy and bully everybody around. And I cut my butt off. I worked out multiple times a day, every day in the middle of the summer to start shrinking my body. I ate different. And we're talking like July and August. I'm doing
When did that happen, Matt? Tell me. So you're 141 as a redshirt freshman. How was your season?
No, I was 133. I was in two weight classes. I was 133.
Okay, so you were 133 as a redshirt freshman.
Weighing about for my whole year. I never even had the thought cross my mind about going 125. It wasn't like you're a tweener and you're going up. Like, no, I was a 103. I wrestled 130 in my senior year of high school, and I wrestled 133 my freshman year of college. Like, my intentions were to wrestle 133 and then grow into 141 eventually.
Really?
So some people might not know that, but like, yeah, I was a guy who made the executive decision on my own. I'm going to cut weight, and nobody can stop me. And I really haven't ever to this point. I did my junior year a little bit. I dropped down from 125 to 119 because my coach Stryker, said, like, I think you're going to be the better wrestler at that weight. I don't think you're going to, it's a tougher weight class, but I think you're going to be a better wrestler at that weight. And I was like, all right, I got to trust you on that. So that was the only time.
When did it?
Was in high school that I cut weight, and it really wasn't.
When do you remember the thought first coming to your mind, like, I'm going to cut to 125? So do you remember the moment? Do you remember the day?
Happened, but I never cut. No, I remember sometime after the season, before the summer started. It wasn't like immediately after the season, because I actually wrestled. I believe, it was that summer I wrestled 60 kilograms in Vegas, the U20 nationals, I guess it would be now at the time, not the
Western
trials.
Regionals or something like that.
Yeah, okay. I wrestled in the U20 Open, or what? Not the Open, but the U20 national tournament, the same one that used to be in Vegas. And so that had to be in April. So I want to say May of that year, right after I had finished competing in those events. I thought about it, May or June, and it was like, I'm going to go down to 125. Tom, what do you think? I think I can make the lineup. Do it then. I mean, not like
who was there at that time?
It was Tom and Terry, and I want to say Mike Zadek and Doug Schwab at the time. So my main guys, I mean, all of them, but the guys who were like, I went to when I needed, like you would expect, Tom and Terry, when I needed to get true confirmation on what I should do. They were like the bosses, the CEOs.
Who was that 125?
Charlie Falk graduated. So I was a teammate with him for 1 year. He graduated in 2009 in that tournament. He fell short of actually All-Americaning that year. Then he graduated. And so there was this hole at 125, but Dan Dennis had just gotten 7th at 133. So the guy who, I was wrestling 133, the guy at the weight class I had been wrestling at was returning All-American, and the guy the weight class below me just graduated. So for me, it was a no-brainer. But the coaching staff weren't pushing it on me at all. It was just, hey, somebody's going to have to take a hold of that spot. We just won the Nationals for the second time. So at that point, you got to think like this is a prized possession being it this way. We want the guy who thinks he's going to be a national champ. We're not just going to put some kid out at 125. And, I hate to say it, but it's like how Kale is now. Like, you don't just plug a weight class. It's like they this year didn't have a weight that was bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, did they have a weight that was bad? Tell me which weight. I can't tell you which weight was not good for them. Every single one was freaking lights out. So for me, there's a whole, this is my dream. It doesn't matter what sacrifices I have to make. I got the chance. I'm going to be the Hawkeye. I'm going to be the guy. And started cutting weight in July. I remember at the end of summer camps, which are usually like mid-July or used to be for the University of Iowa, which we do our own, workout programming in the summer of getting free, open mat time. And I basically cut down to I want to say 128 pounds to prove to myself, if you can get to this weight, it might've been less. It might've been 126. If you can get to this weight, you're gonna be able to go to 125. So I did a weight cut, training session on my own in the middle of the summer, just to prove to myself that this isn't just a fluke. You can be a 25 pounder. And then took a break for a month. And then by mid to late October, I was pretty much in I'm making this weight class. I was in training mode, which is earlier than most. I'm not saying they're not training, but training mode where you're not really drinking. You're working out twice a day, every day. You're eating really disciplined. Hindsight, I don't want to say only, but the majority of guys who are doing what I just talked about, where they're working out, they're doing everything. Working out twice a day. They're staying away from the negative social life, and they're eating really, really healthy all the year round. Most of them are probably the guys who, we can name this year as the top tier wrestlers. They get a total package. Their social life is in order. They're every one of those top, think about every national finalist. Not many of them are living a real undisciplined life. Those are the kids who, do that. So I kind of set myself up for success by cutting to 125, both by virtue of being the bigger, tougher kid in the weight, but also because it forced me to be more disciplined than anybody else in the country.
This has been awesome. This is part one. I got one more question to end part one, and this is episode 19. We've never had a, multi-part podcast. You're going to be the first one because this is just too damn good. So last question, coming out of left field here. Last question for this episode with Matt McDonough. When I think about you, Matt, another thing that comes to mind, you froze up. Are you there?
Yeah. You
Okay.
froze up too.
Froze up a little bit.
You said last nugget, from left field.
Yes. So when I think about Matt McDonough, I always visualize you with that headgear that was all taped up. Where's that headgear?
Yes. What's that?
Well, first of all, what was the story with the tape, and where is that headgear?
Oh, I can. This is good. I got a story for this. So did you wrestle long? Did you wrestle a long time ago?
First,
like in high school.
Yeah, first grade through senior year of high school, and I'm iron size.
So okay. So when you were young, do you remember that Cliff Keen made those headgears that had metal inserts, not plastic, but they were metal on the inside? The inside of the headgear was metal. We're talking old. Exactly.
I graduated high school in 1994, and I always had Cliff Keen headgears because Cliff Keen headgears are non-negotiable. The old Cliff Keen classic is non-negotiable. It's the best.
That's the one.
Now, let me tell you this, Matt. When I was younger, let me throw this in there real quick. So when I'm in high school, I was in high school 91 through 94. Well, in 91 and 94, guys that were taking names and kissing babies, Tom and Terry Brands, and they had headgears with the American flag decal on them. And I thought they were the baddest headgears ever. So when I think about headgears, the first headgears I will always remember are Tom and Terry Brands, the American flag. And then I would say yours all taped up. I always remember that headgear. Always, just always remember it.
So here's the backstory. For whatever reason, when I came to Iowa, like the coveted headgear to get, and you didn't just get handed this. This was like you had to ask Tom Brands for it, but it wasn't like you had to earn it. It was just, you had to ask him and him to really think you deserved it. You didn't have to do a certain amount of work. You had to be a guy. So there were these Cliff Keen old classic headgears, and they had metal inserts. And the beauty about these was like they never broke, right? Ever. Like it's metal insert. Like it doesn't fold in on your ear. It doesn't crunch. Doesn't snap. Like they're perfect. They last forever. Well, the problem is the metal inserts. These were old headgear because they were like ancient, but they were brand new. Like someone found them doing the package. So these foam inserts were like disintegrating. Like the more you'd wrestle in them, they disintegrate because they were old, destroyed plastic. And I didn't want to get rid of the headgear because it's got that cool metal insert that is much more durable, And so you just start taping it because like the senior guy, you think about Phil Ketty. I think he had a taped headgear, and I think Jay might have had a little tape on some of his headgears back in the day. You can look them up, Joe Slayton or others. There's a few guys that taped their headgear. So I just was like, well, I'm not gonna, get a new headgear. I'm just gonna start taping this one. And sure enough, by the end of the year, the whole thing, like you can't even see. It's I think a black and white headgear, white lines and a black foam, and it's like you can't even see the black because every ounce of it was tape. I still have that headgear. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where is that thing? Where do you keep it?
It's in a box in my basement somewhere, just like all the rest of my stuff. I'll tell you what, for the longest time, I did not have any of my NCAA trophies in my possession. Not a single award I earned in Iowa, not anything. I didn't have a single. I just gave it to my mom. She just right away. I didn't put them in my room. Nothing. Now I at least have out my NCAA trophies just as a good way to appreciate my past. And then my NCAA team trophies. Those are the only ones. I take that back. The other one I have out is my senior year, the award for the graduating senior with the highest GPA, just to remind me that I always wanted to be multi-talented, meaning I wasn't just an athlete. I was a student and an athlete. And that was kind of a way to prove it. Those are the only trophies I still to this day really, to keep out anywhere. All the rest of my stuff is in boxes and places.
Did that headgear have a name?
No, I didn't name anything. I wasn't that type of kid, but I certainly, after I wanted it, then it was just like, well, now you have to wear this headgear. It's like a superstition kind of.
That headgear
Oh,
was,
it's a great headgear.
I mean, if that headgear could tell
what else
stories.
I remember? The one here, I'll embellish a little, not embellish, but I'll laugh and pat myself on the back a little bit. I remember my freshman year, I was doing really good. By the end of the year, I was like a national title contender as a freshman for a previous national. I was like the new kid on the team, like there at Penn State right now. I hate to reference them sometimes, but hey, they're
Braden Davis.
Braden Davis, just as a new guy, he could be it, and he didn't get there this year, but I remember kids, because I had cut this eye, and so for the whole rest of the year I taped my forehead.
Yes. Yep.
And I remember little kids that were raised as Hawk fans would come up to me with their head wrap and ask me to sign their tape band on their head. And it's like, that's where you're like, you kind of feel like this superstar. I mean, it is still a big fish in a little pond. Like, that's what like pop music stars have. That's what you feel like. You're like a Hollywood star. People are like, they're literally wrapping their head like me just to like, I don't know, dress up, It's pretty awesome.
It's awesome, man. I mean, that's one of those, Matt, where it's like, tell me that you're wrestling Iowa without telling me that you're wrestling Iowa. Or tell me you're a Hawkeye without telling me. I mean, that's it. That's Iowa.
I feel like that's been this whole talk is, I mean, everything I'm explaining, people are like, what? Like, why do you keep talking about high school and these offshoot things like that?
I love it.
It's crazy. It's crazy how obsessed these people are in Iowa. Like, it certainly helps make you motivated to do big things.
We will talk about this on the next episode, but I just want to ask you a yes or no question. Did you see, so you graduated high school in what year? Like 08?
2008. Yep.
2008. So you would have been about 9-10 years old, but did you watch The Season on ESPN?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. We'll talk about that the next time. I got one more. Did you see, so when I was growing up and The Season was money, but when I was growing up, Matt, I mean, if you wanted to get fired up, it was real simple. Yeah. You went and got the VHS tape and you threw in Dan Gable, Competitor Supreme. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
There is nothing.
Oh, yeah.
I might go watch that thing tonight. I mean, that was so effing good. It's still the greatest wrestling thing I've ever seen in my life. So good. So good. Well, Matt, thank you much.
Yes.
Listen, we'll end of the first period. It was a hard hand fight. And you and I got after it. It's a good scrap. We know this. You and I got our hands on each other in the first period. You know and I know that whoever's going to get their arm raised at the end, you're going to have to go to hell and back 2 or 3 times. Like, who's willing to suffer enough? This was a good scrap in the first period.
I remember that from our first interview. That I don't think you would back down until you weren't breathing anymore.
Matt, thank you so much. Dorn It Podcast, Matt McDonough. Looking forward to episode 2. Thank you so much.
Love it. See ya.